If I ask you, what is American history? What comes to mind? Do you think the Declaration of Independence?
And independent states.
The Civil War?
They faced down the Confederates in Antietam.
Maybe the Great Depression?
And on Thursday, October 24th, Black Thursday,
At least that's what we were taught American history is. Not just taught, this is what we were told as what defines American history. A narrative taught in whiteface. Yes, even this misogynistic, racist, homophobic, punk-ass motherfucker. Honestly, for a history so white, the effects it has is pretty damn dark.
When we say American history, what comes to mind?
I learned about World War II, which I learned that we won the war.
Slavery lasted a lot longer than we thought it did.
U.S. history is about the Civil War and slavery.
The Social Security's Acts, I guess.
The Constitution.
Just learned about the Great Depression.
The Cold War.
Let's go with the industrial era, because I didn't know anything about that before that.
Have you heard of either the Third World Liberation Front or the I Hotel?
Honestly, no.
I have not. No.
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
No. The I Hotel?
Yeah.
No.
See, this is the dangers of a Eurocentric curriculum. A master narrative told to see in the perspective of the oppressor. Cause I don't know about you, but in SF alone, American history seems to be pretty damn brown.
They're really willing to run these risks. They see the dangers inherent in this situation.
Can you please state your name, position, and answer, what does American history mean to you?
My name is Larry Solomon. I teach in the College of Ethnic Studies, Department of Race and Resistance Studies. Been teaching here for a long time, since 1994. American history to me is complicated, and it's filled with tragedy, but also filled with resilience, filled with stories of inspirational resistance. It's not one thing, it's a complicated medley of many things.
My name is Arlene Dousman-Wall. I am the Director for Asian American and Pacific Islander Student Services here at San Francisco State University. And I also teach first year experience course here in Asian American Studies, AAS 101. American history before used to mean other people's victories, and really thinking about what the Eurocentric history that was taught to me in elementary through college. I believed in it. I internalized that, there are folks who are inferior and folks who are superior to society, and history I felt taught me that. The American history taught me that. It's taught the way it is because they were the authors of the books, and I think because they know English and that's what we're learning, I really feel like they're the ones that can best describe it in their language. Whereas people of color, even Filipinos like myself, where is the space for us to write in our language, in our tongue, in our understanding of the way we live and the understanding of the way we communicate with each other. We were not able to do that in the spaces that we were in terms of education.
And it's with that lack of space and opportunity in education that drove the students of SF State to create the Third World Liberation Front, a diverse and united coalition to fight for ethnic studies.
We have not moved on the level of abstraction. We have not moved on the level of conceptualization. We have not moved on the level of attempting to create something that was not there. The level we have moved on has been a level of need, a level that directly affects our lives and the conditions under which we live our lives.
Third World Liberation Front was a coalition of student organizations comprised of students of color on this campus in 1968 who came together to support the initial demands of the Black Student Union, who went out on strike to demand Black studies and later ethnic studies. Third World Liberation Front helped conduct the longest student strike in American history for 5 months, shutting down this campus. And many of the students after the Third World Liberation Front disbanded, later went into their communities inspired by their activism and strike to found movements like the American Indian Movement, occupation of Alcatraz Island, starting with that, the I Hotel struggle, and a number of other things. But that came out of the Third World Liberation Front. This idea that these students of color who weren't third world, but they consider themselves third world people in the United States, were a political identity, and activism was also part of their identity.
Identities consisting of African Americans, Latino Americans, Filipino Americans, and Asian Americans, each of them creating a space that now allows you to bring in your own stories.
With so many things, you know, and I feel like they come with so much cultural wealth that we need to foster that and grow that and help them understand that whatever they have to say, whatever they believe in, whatever their histories and experience are is valid and it's valued, and that we want them to write about it. We want them to talk about it. We want them to share about it. The significance is having the classes that you're having right now to do this actual project. So if it wasn't for the Third World Liberation Front, you would not have this class. You would not have your opportunity to interview people of color and put them on film and put it in a show. I really feel like the ethnic studies strikers in the 1960s and all the way through, because I feel like we always continue to defend ethnic studies and why it's important. And I think without that struggle, without that movement, we wouldn't have ethnic studies classes. We wouldn't have ethnic specific programs. We wouldn't have identity centers. We wouldn't have more administrators, teachers, students in other colleges. Because when that happened, what the original strikers have told me is that when they were students at SF State, there was only 1% people of color on this campus. You know, and if we're thinking about Asian Americans right now in 2018, there's about 35 to 40% on this campus. So tell me, institutionally, personally, and interpersonally, and ideologically, how ethnic studies has changed how we think, how we move, how we organize.
One of the things that inspired a lot of the students at that time was this idea that ethnic studies was going to connect them to their community in ways that other disciplines were not demanding. Many of the early ethnic studies assignments were oral history projects. You had students here who were taking the first Asian American studies classes, for example, required to then go into their community and interview their elders. And many of them would go, because they were volunteering anyway, at places like the I Hotel, which was the last block of Manila Town left of that community. They were going to volunteer anyway in social service organizations.
This is my home since for a long time. Since I arrived here from the Philippines in 1926. In and out San Francisco. Whenever no work in the country, I come here and find a job in the city, and I live here. So most of my time in my years in America, I spend in this hotel. So it is my home.
I Hotel, I mean, that was a struggle that happened in the 60s and 70s where they wanted to change the hotel where the Monos lived and a lot of low-income farm workers lived. And I think the importance of it was to show that regardless of the generation and regardless of people in different communities, that we can come together and become allies in the movement and the struggle for people who are advocating for justice, who are advocating for housing, who are advocating for rights for either young or old or in between. And I think the I Hotel sparked community movement of all kinds of communities. So it wasn't just about Filipinos fighting for the rights of Filipinos, but there were so many other communities who were in allyship, in communion, in community with the Filipinos to get their rights as people who have, you know, who need housing.
To learn more about what the fight for the I Hotel was exactly, we visited a location of where the I Hotel used to stand, now holding the Manila Town Heritage Center.
Manila Town had been reduced to one block. It used to be 10 blocks long. So again, it's called encroachment, right? It's called displacement, which is why it caught attention. This was the first hotel to say, no, we're not moving.
This is the best place for the Filipinos. I like to stay here. I don't want to move.
And individuals also letting it be known that they're being harassed or they're being unfairly targeted. So everybody has to speak up. And silence is no longer the way. We have to learn to speak up because otherwise we will continue to be oppressed.
To confirm whether this issue still exists today, we met with Sammy Gutierrez, a youth counselor and civic engagement coordinator of local nonprofit organizations, Filipino Advocate for Justice.
Yeah, very much so, I think. The International Hotel and essentially was a displacement of an entire community, you know, a very oppressed and marginalized group of elders and, you know, Filipino and Chinese folks and immigrants. We're seeing the same thing happen here out in the Bay Area. So what was originally something that I think people thought it was a San Francisco issue has become very much a Bay Area-wide issue. And so you have the displacement and gentrification that was originally kind of housed in San Francisco, now coming out towards Oakland, Alameda, and San Leandro, Union City, and Hayward. Currently, what we've been working on is a campaign trying to protect folks from displacement and gentrification in Alameda, and a lot of the people that we've been working with were Filipinos, and also made up of the same demographic. They were immigrants, they are elders, you know, and additionally their families, their children, which is how I ended up getting caught up in the anti-displacement and anti-gentrification and tenants' rights work. It was affecting the people in our programs. It was affecting the people we're already serving. And, you know, we would talk all this good-ish and, you know, do workshops and you know, critical analysis of, like, ethnic studies and iHotel, but then, and, you know, like all this social justice stuff, and then we get a bunch of families getting evicted. What are we going to do? It was organic and, like, we got to do something.
Hi, my name is Jomar Kevatutan, and I am 8 years old, and I do not want to move because my school is right next to our apartment, and we don't have enough money to afford for a new house, and we're gonna lose our memories from the apartment.
How do we understand? Like, we can learn about movements, but we gotta also understand why we have to move in the first place. Why was it created? Why was racism created? So really thinking about power, about privilege, about systems of oppression, the reproduction of whiteness, white supremacy. So you gotta really think like this is a bigger plan. This is in terms of who is benefiting on the backs of people who are suffering. Yes, we can teach movements, but can we teach the root causes of why we need to move in the first place?
So as we look back into the real, true history of color that is American history, we learn that in reality, history
is what makes me who I am. The people of yesterday helped shape the world today. The minority groups stood up and fought for their rights to live.
Something that I am fighting against every day. I will not conform to the stereotypes and prejudice thoughts that have been pushed on my people in the past and still in the present.
Evidence of resistance. Every person fought for their beliefs and struggles to allow us to be where we are today. Although we have so much more work to do, every day we are one step closer to finding complete unity, equality, and recognition.
Truth and empowerment. Without knowing about our roots and ancestors, we are only bound to be lost about who we are as individuals. Taking pride in my roots builds up my identity. Knowing that I come from a country of struggle and oppression, it only strengthens my resilience to overcome all obstacles.
Fighting for something you believe in. We as human beings have a right to stand up for what we believe in, no matter how many times people push us down. When adversity hits, the best thing to do is keep going.
Made to only separate people instead of uniting them, also filled with false claims and lies.
Not just black and white, it is something that everyone contributed to through pain and suffering. It is something people fought for and to be remembered for.
Made by us, the diverse communities of color, the root of American progress. So as we continue to acknowledge our community, strengthen our community, fight for our community, we continue to make history. A history made by a community united in struggle. Unity through the phrase, one down, one fall. An idea beautifully phrased by the Filipino farm workers who fought in Delano as isang bagsak. So as we continue this tradition, we solidify our unity.
It go rain on main.
Welcome to the party.
Bolo when I AK, holy when I pray on those who pray for better.
Hey, this is lit.
Rain. Came from the same bloodline as Andres.
It doesn't look focused though.
Ready for whatever type of shit we catch next. Yay, never been afraid of no badge, bruh. Two police is a match, I'm just gonna make it all, even though the field run, even though we living in the last, bruh. I'm rolling with
People who offer those kinds of criticisms are usually people who are not in favor of anything that we do. So I don't know if this is right for your recording, but they can go fuck themselves.
Welcome to the Sammy Hour.
I'm sorry, let's do it. Let's do it.
The workers in the field, the Filipinos and the Mexicans, we plant those grapes in there. And we make these people rich.
That's why we demand for our share to live as a human being, so that we could also send our children to school and be educated like anybody else. That is the struggle. That's what I feel in my heart and what I got in my mind.